Okay, we're going live.
Go
In
ahead.
3, 2, 1. I have clicked the button. Welcome back, dude. It's been a while.
Yes, it has. It has been a little
Good
bit of a
to see
while.
you again. I'm glad we are live streaming again to the Facebook lands. And you'll be happy to know that I finally sat down for about 4.5 hours and walked.
Let's listen to 7 of us. Sorry.
Uh-oh, are you echoing?
Yeah, I'm trying to mute. Oh,
Did you get it?
yes. Thank you. Hello.
Hi. So you'll be happy to know that I finally was able to block out about 4.5 hours to sit down with my girlfriend and walk her through all of the checklist, creating the checklist for getting these episodes edited. So we should be able to get at least 1, if not 2 episodes every week moving forward, which means we'll be able to catch up on that backlog of unpublished episodes
Brilliant.
soon enough. Yeah, so you want to start the show?
Yeah. All right. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Living NLP podcast. My name is Morgan Lane Bennett.
I am Nicholas Rave.
And we are here to get NLP out of your head and into the world. We're here to just talk about this thing that we love, this series of techniques and perspectives that have given us so much, that help us give others so much. And we just shoot the shit as to pros, if you will. And the way we do it is we share an anecdote from our life or coaching with NLP. We share a quote that we have that we've read or heard or thought was interesting. And then we take questions from you, the listening audience. And we are here for you. So if you have any questions, if you're listening live, let us know what's up and we'll let you know what's up as best we can. Well,
fabulous. That was a great intro. I will jump in with my anecdote. What was I going to talk about? Oh, I remember. So I can't remember if I've shared this with you personally yet or not, but we hired my wife and I are business partners in working on my work together. She's the CEO and I'm the talent. So we hired a marketing consultant out of Australia, and it's actually been pretty great, the stuff I've learned from him. One of the things that we ended up getting inspired to do was create something he calls a unique mechanism. So like, what's the thing you do for people that they can't get anywhere else? So I ended up sort of channeling an 8-step process that is sort of like, here's what I want all of the people that I work with to have already done before I work with them.
Right.
And it's like, you get to be a VIP client if you go through these steps, because then it makes my job so much easier. So I'm not going to go through all 8 steps, but the second step in the process is one we've talked about before, and I am running one of my first people through the 8 steps. In the second week, the second step is the personification of the unconscious. And man, that is one of those things that just keeps getting more profound the more that I do it. So one of my favorite things about it is the ability to just start talking about the client as if they're like the third person in the room. And it is such a fast way to bypass inductions.
Yeah, because you're like, wait, is this make-believe or what? Is this actually happening? Are we talking about me? Am I talking about myself?
Yeah. So I do all of this like installation of maps and models, and I talk about the idea that this isn't real, it's pretend, but it's a very useful map to make sense of the tangled rat's nest that is your brain or your mind. So we go through all of this educational stuff building up to the moment, right? And then my process for the moment is so like anticlimactic, but it's like you have to barrel forward as if what you're doing is the normalest thing in the world. And it's like we build up to this thing, and then I just go, so close your eyes and imagine that your unconscious mind is there with you. What does your unconscious mind look like? And then what is your unconscious mind's name? And as soon as we get a name, I start talking to the unconscious. So in the most recent case, I'll change the names. The name of this client's unconscious ended up being Jade. And and the symbolism of what costume the unconscious picks for itself is always a fertile ground for extracting insights. So in this case, her unconscious mind was a drag queen named Jade, and it ended up being this like embracing of aspects of herself that had been disowned. So then there was this healing conversation, and she was crying as her unconscious was talking about how much she missed her and all this stuff. And then the next day, I started sending text messages to Jade and being like, hey, how's it going? And then I'm having a text conversation with her unconscious talking about her.
Nice.
And ever since then, she's been sending emails and texts about these like almost daily breakthroughs that she's having relating to her unconscious, and weird coincidences and the way her unconscious is showing up, the way that she's like all of a sudden these projects that I like, patterns of procrastination that we haven't even addressed. And she's like, all of a sudden, I always put off this particular licensing thing that I have to do until it's too late. And she's like, I got it done like 5 days ahead of time, and I've never done that in my life. What the hell is happening? It's such a powerful transformation, and it's only the first step in the whole thing. I'm really excited, maybe more excited than I've ever been, to be doing this kind of work and seeing where it's going to go. I've never put together something that I feel is so like uniquely mine. Like, this is my methodology. This is the rave methodology, if you want to call it that. And it really is the checklist of like, what's the shit I always end up doing with people anyway?
Right.
And what's the shit that if I did it with people to begin with, it would make everything else we do from that point like 10 times more efficient and effective. And it starts with personifying the unconscious, and then we go through building out the inner world and dethroning the judger, and then doing top down and bottom up trauma work, and then getting in touch with your purpose, and then unlocking the floodgates of pleasure so you can train your animal. And then the last one is when we I call it opening the doors to magic, where it's like, now that you have all of these frames in place, what do you want to create? Like, you are a wizard now. What do you want to make happen in your life? And then that's the further step of, okay, now let's go do that.
Nice.
So yeah, the personification thing, man, it's so universal and it's so simple. When you really get comfortable with it, you can do it with a little bit of pre-framing, and then you just start having the conversation, and
it's just a metaphor.
So deep. Yeah.
And you're just like, my favorite part of it is, well, one of my favorite parts of it is, whether they know it or not, it's like, yeah, you're not even the problem or the solution. Just get out of the way. I love telling them, is there a place you like to go? Like a vacation spot that you'd love to go to? Oh yeah, this beach on Hawaii. Great. Go there now. Off you go. I'm going to talk to this other part of you. Like, just go over there. And then my favorite is like, and they start to answer in the second person, or like, so, hey, Jade.
Yeah.
What's your job? All that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, her job is to no.
I'm not talking to you.
Back to the beach. Get out of here. And they're like, okay. And if you just sit there with that, no, there you go. That's the perspective I'm looking for, is the one that isn't yours.
Yeah.
The one that's like not, quote, yours.
Yes.
And then you can
the part of you that you have disowned, the part of you that is most deeply unconscious.
That is like the rest and the most and the best of you. It's like all this other stuff. So just like, if I could go through the screen, one of those awkward, like,
Yeah, it's very like jangle keys and be like,
Right.
look at the
Off you
shiny
go.
thing. Go over
Off
here.
you go. Yeah. And if you frame it as play and just, I'm going to ask you weird questions.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can be weirder than their answers.
Mm-hmm. Not usually a problem for me.
Yeah.
So let's say the client's name is Beth. So what I'll end up doing is I'm like, Jade, what do you want to say to Beth? And then we start, and like, what is Beth really good at? What has Beth been like falling down on? And then Jade is like, oh, well, she's really good at this. And these are the things. And what do you need from her? What would help you do your job better? What are you looking for from her? What would you like her to apologize for? Like, Jade, what would you like Beth to apologize for? That is such like I've never seen somebody not cry at that. Matter of fact, I will say I have yet to do a personification where I don't cry, because I think that, like, for me, my unconscious is so happy that I took this experience that was very personal for me of meeting my unconscious and giving her a name. She's so happy that when I do it with somebody else and I give them that experience, it's I also think unconscious minds just really like it when you talk about them, that they really like being like,
Or they like
ooh.
having the chance to talk
Yes, yeah,
and being given agency of like, what do you want?
right,
What's your deal?
yep,
Like, I love it. Well, very cool, man. Glad to hear the excitement of all the things.
yeah,
My anecdote. So I had a client a couple days ago who knows a lot of stuff, about a lot of things, about a lot of these kinds of things, and has not been taking action.
mm-hmm.
Even though we'll call this person that he, even though he knows about marketing, about sales, about taking action, about what to do, about the things, about what to say, what to do when you get them, what the process is, how to make change, but just like freezes when it comes time to take action.
Yep.
Has dealt with a lot of people about this thing and made little tiny things that everyone's like, oh, it's this, oh, that's the thing. But then next week's like, so how is it, man? No. And then I guess, so what's going on? What is that about? And he's like, well, I don't know, but it kind of reminds me of this one time, I did a bad thing, or I made a bad decision that hurt some people, and I felt really horrible about it. And I was like, okay, cool. And then he's talked about something else, and I was like, well, do you think that's the root? And he goes, well, I don't know about the root or anything. He kind of just wanted to like, I don't know about that. I go, okay, well, sure, let's go there anyways. And again, I don't want to know what you're talking about.
Right.
I don't want to know what you did, what you didn't do,
I don't
what you said,
need to hear any
what you
of it.
said, who you said it to, how they felt, what the fucking, when it was, why it was. I don't want to know. And he knows that I don't want to know, because he knows that I don't need to know.
Yeah.
And in that way of, specific vagueness, was like, oh, he saw that the difference between like because if it's a matter of him doing something for someone else, he's there. If it's him like working for someone or doing a thing, or like, oh, I got it, yeah, let's do it, behind someone else's thing, but his. And he came to this realization that he needs to discern if what he's doing is good for himself and for others, like the ecology of the whole thing, then there's no problem. He's good to go. And I go, great. And so then I just, for once, shut the fuck up and let him just, and and he's doing it, it's all unwinding. And I just let him sit there for a while. And then it became his understanding that, like, if I have this step in the strategy, that I can take action, no problem.
Yeah.
And the metaphor I wanted to share, which is kind of the whole point of the thing, is before he felt like he was walking around in the darkness and he knew that there was a giant hole there somewhere. So he was afraid to take a step and had like walled himself off. And he goes, but now I realize now that that the warning, the big wall, is for the whole, not for me. I was just like, yes.
That's
Yes.
awesome.
And then he said, and the part of me that was like built the wall is good. It's good.
Yes.
The wall's good. The wall
Yes.
building is good. And having the step that says
Yeah.
this is good for everybody is good.
Yeah.
But rather than guard the whole, he guarded himself.
Yeah.
And once that flipped,
Yeah.
he went, oh
Dude, that
shit.
is such a good paradigm shift, perspective shift, reframe
Yeah.
of like, no, I'm putting this around here, not I'm putting a thing around me. And in that case, walls are good. Walls are not good
Barriers. Yeah.
contextually.
Yeah,
Walls
exactly.
are good. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And yeah, and it was a good example of just like letting someone unwind their own metaphor. Let them,
Yep.
and then just be amazed. I've been amazed at a couple things. I'm like, that's fucking great.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Good for you. Like, what a great metaphor.
Yeah. And then those actually become metaphors for you, because like a lot
now
of my
I'll
metaphors.
tell that to tons of people. And
exactly.
Like, yeah, you're right. Oh man, I also a colleague of mine hooked me up with a Jorgen Rasmussen like weekend video series.
Oh,
very good. And all he does is that. And there's a couple of ones of his of that. I'm just like, oh, I'm just going to say, I heard a guy tell me a story one time that is
exactly.
And then
exactly.
like, so yeah. So I was so tickled with that. I was like, that's amazing. And in some way, hopefully a little one of my barriers came off of me and went around a hole, and someone listening here, they can go, oh yeah, am I guarding myself?
Yeah, where have you guarded yourself when actually the barrier is not a bad thing, it's a good thing, but when you put it around yourself, that's the problem. So what do you need to put that barrier around?
Right.
And cherish and value and appreciate that boundary.
Yeah, and go, that's a good thing. And yeah, and again, didn't know what the problem was, didn't know why it happened, didn't know what how he sorted it out, but he goes, oh, and then here's a little picture of it.
Yep.
Love
what
it.
I mean, not to tie this back to my favorite topic, which is me, but one of the benefits that I find, or two of the benefits that I find for the personification thing, is it opens the door to what you said about letting people unravel their own metaphors.
Oh yeah.
Is like when you get people talking to themselves, when you get people engaging their imagination in that way, it's just like you open this door to the self-solving
and
aspects.
For me, it's a lot of it is Igor calls them dead metaphors, which I think is a pretty bad metaphor for what they are, but things we say that we forgot we mean, like that other guy that I talked about was like, I just feel like I'm just on a little boat, you know, and I'll think, wait, let's go back to that boat.
Yeah.
Or like, like, well, tell me that. Or this guy's like, oh, it's this thing. And, it probably didn't happen when he was a child.
Right.
So it might not be the root of all his insecurity or whatever,
right.
But it was like the hub for so much stuff. And I was like, hang on a second. What was that again? Like he just, and then let him do it. Because sometimes they're like, I don't want, nope.
Exactly.
I'd rather just go this other way because that's the way I've always gone. And you just go, no, I'm here. We're here. I'm here. We're here. We got this. What's that in the corner over there?
Yep.
Open that box for me, would you?
And that story about the boat was such a perfect example of like the things that people think are insignificant end up being.
It's like, I don't want to rock the boat. And people say it all the time. People who, and even my quote will be about people I've worked with, people who are too demure, people don't express themselves. I mean, on some level, they don't want to rock the boat.
Right.
And if you let that just go, you can let it go and maybe solve it 1,000 other ways. But you can also go,
what kind of boat is it?
They're like, huh? Because you're using words and creating, and you're like,
if you're on a giant cruise ship, can you rock the boat? Like, what could you do on that cruise ship? You could land a fucking helicopter on that cruise ship.
Did you ever see the Archer where he keeps pointing out idioms people keep using about things like that?
I don't remember which one.
It's just when you realize that, and people have said, oh, we speak in however many metaphors a minute or whatever. But that's how we're, it's kind of I don't know, I'm avoiding the term hack. You're hacking the whatever, but it is sort of how things are structured.
Yeah.
It's how the language works. And
Yeah.
if you speak it in the language, you can go, hey, you kind of, it's the overarching thing. You can get into the minimal this and but what if you turn this word into that word or whatever? But then you're like, life is still a sinking ship or whatever. I'm still on a sinking ship. Oh, okay, well, let's go up here. What needs to happen to make that ship not sink? Well, then all the other stuff is included in building the fantasy dream world metaphor.
One of my favorite books on my shelf about metaphors is a book called Metaphors We Live By.
Yeah.
And it's all about how metaphor shapes our reality and how many things are actually metaphors that we don't even realize are metaphors. It's not a therapy book. It's more like an English book, but it's about that topic and the idea that those metaphors become the filters that you use to experience your life.
That's why some people who might wear crazy shirts every now and then speak out against certain traditional metaphors that have been around for so long that people forget that what they actually are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they forget that it is a metaphor at all. Yeah. And they also never question, maybe there are better metaphors.
Yeah. Like I remember I was on the first date with somebody. We're at a coffee shop that I had no idea was Catholic, which is whatever, but like it's their coffee shop, they can do what they want. But there was a crucifix, a proper crucifix, not a cross, but a crucifix on the wall.
Right.
I think I maybe mentioned this to you before, but like
gruesome torture.
I look at it and I go, oh God. She looks and goes, what's the problem? I go, do you see that over there? She's like, yeah. So I go, but do you see what it is?
Yeah.
Like, I know what you think it means, and it means this and all that, Christianity, but do you see what it is? Yeah. Like, it's a guy being tortured to death on the wall of this lovely tea shop that we're in.
Yeah.
Aren't there better ways to say God loves you?
Yeah. What if it was just a picture with somebody, instead of their arms like this, their arms were above their head and their intestines were like spilling out, and they have that piece of art on their wall? You'd be like, the fuck is wrong with these people? Like, why is that art on your wall?
Well, what if it was him trying to offer you a hug? Like, why couldn't Jesus be like this?
Yeah. You know? Yeah, Buddha, thank you very much. Like smiling, big, fat, like, yeah.
Like, hey.
I like that one better.
Yeah. Anyways,
okay. So one last speaking of metaphor, one last point I was going to make is the thing you said about your client says, when it's for someone else, easy, I can do it immediately. Like I never hesitate. I had a conversation with a client about that where he was saying, like, I was using the analogy of if you're staying at someone else's house, and he's the kind of person who he's like, I'm going to help dishes. I'm going to help clear the table. I'm going to make sure that like the guest room, the bed is made. Like he's very much like, I'm going to take care. And of course I would never, I wouldn't feel offended if you ask me to put the dishes away. He's like, of course, let me help. But when it comes to his own stuff, so one of the things one of the things that I directed his attention to is one of the benefits of personifying the unconscious is it gives you an object for your affection. Like I think one of the reasons that self-esteem theory just doesn't help anybody. It's not a useful metaphor to think about your sense of self-esteem in my experience, because it doesn't linguistically make any sense. What you're actually talking about, you have to have, if I love myself or I hate myself, there are two beings in that sentence. So in order to take self-care, people talk about that all the time. Like you got to do your self-care. It's so much harder to do self-care than to take care of another. So if you can create that other in yourself and you start to see your unconscious and your body or whatever you want as a thing you are responsible for taking care of, you are in charge of this thing, that I say people would do more to take care of their neighbor's dog than they will to take care of themselves.
Right.
So how do you shift that? Start to think of yourself as another.
Right.
And it's very much installing multiple personalities at some level, but I argue that it's more acknowledging that you already have multiple personalities.
Sure.
Cool, man. All right. My quote is from this fabulous book that you recommended
book.
and
So
turned me
that's
on
different
to.
than Angel Tech, which you've read.
Yeah, I have that one sitting here too because I
Okay.
couldn't remember where this section was.
Have you read that?
Yeah, both of
Oh,
them.
so good.
They're amazing. I mean, I'm reading them again because I mean, these are going to be multiple reads for me to get everything out of here. But the concept that I wanted to talk about, and I have a few little quotes that I wanted to illustrate this point, and then I wanted to talk about it. It's the thing he calls shock. Right? It's that idea of an experience that's like a lightning bolt that he says a shock in context of the 8-circuit model, shocks are only shocking to the degree of naivete we show around the presence of the objective truths of ecstasy, uncertainty, indivisibility, and impermanence. Real life shocks are innate to life and can happen anywhere, anytime, to anybody. Nobody is exempt. Examples include sudden housing eviction, falling in love, getting fired from work, marriage, divorce, childbirth, parenting, loss of loved ones, natural disaster, sudden kundalini activations, sudden death of parents or children, unexpected financial windfalls, terrorist attacks, any move of residence, police arrest, incarceration, big employment promotions, surgery, spiritual epiphanies, heart attacks, strokes, epistemological crisis, heroic doses of mushrooms. The list goes on and on. So he says here, the ego either realize. Oh, wait. When the shocks can act as a turning point for self-initiation. When the separatist ego engages in any direct confrontation with the archetype of the self, it tends to respond in one of two ways. The ego either realizes its honest place as a substratum of a larger reality, humbles down and becomes receptive, not the same as passive or submissive, or it denies and defies the existence of a greater reality and succumbs to hubris, arrogance, and ignorance.
So becomes president of the United States.
So when I think about this idea of shocks, I've started thinking about this as a more universal thing, that like everyone has experienced something like this, and it's trauma, call it trauma, but this idea that a positive experience can cause a kind of trauma response. I remember someone talking about this in terms of celebrities, that often someone will become a celebrity. They'll get a huge amount of money or success or fame or all together, and they get stuck in a kind of almost religious, dogmatic way of repeating the same thing because I pushed the lever and I got $10 million. So
Right.
now I can't stop pushing this lever because I need that thing. And it felt so good. And it's like, I use the analogy of like, imagine giving a child heroin, like a developing brain, where they could very easily be like, I need this experience again. This is the point of life, is to feel this experience again. And I've been dealing with some clients lately who had sexual trauma at an early age. And that actually translated into how do I put this? Sexual precociousness, let's say, at a very young age, and a feeling of power that went along with that. The feeling of being able to wield power over adults in a tangible and an intense way became a sort of addiction to this. And this, I think, does explain a lot of addictive tendencies, that these things get like hardwired in. And I guess the best analogy I have of someone trying not to do this, I often think of artists like Bob Dylan's a good example of someone who is willing to burn down everything they've done up to this point because they refuse to stagnate. They refuse to just put something else out again
Right.
that is what I've done before, even if everyone's going to hate it.
Yeah, I heard someone say that Bob Dylan is just mumble rap for boomers.
That's good. But you get my point. There's artists that are willing to and are dedicated to. I
But
won't
again,
just.
but sometimes if that's their thing, that is their button, then they do that too much. When you can just
True. Yeah, that's a good point.
So I've realized from working with some people who came into money, that I've said it before, money like psychedelics, it will just make you more of what you already are.
Yeah.
And windfalls or whatever, like it's, even if it's good pressure, it's still pressure on a chain. And if there's a weak link in that chain, then it's going to go, there goes this right into that. And, you know, it's good to have a lot of those ducks in order before you come into that kind of stuff. And it reminds me of, if you're done, we can go into my quote because it goes right into the book that I was just.
Well, let me comment one more thing, because you mentioned money, and I've had the chance recently to work with some people at a level of economic success and affluence that I haven't even hung around with people who have this kind of money very often, like at parties or something like that. But to actually get to coach somebody and to see how debilitating that money can be for somebody who has trauma, and then the money drives that trauma in so much deeper, and it creates these dependency.
You can't trust anybody else now, and like all your doubts are now 1,000 times. There's a great in the Big Mouth series, there's another sort of character along with like the hormone demon that the little the hero kid, the main character gets, and it's Tito, the anxiety mosquito.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's like, and it's all his doubts and everything is like, it's all everywhere. It's pretty genius.
That show is fabulous. I love it so much. The money as a handicap and like getting stuck because getting into the model of the world. I guess that's the lesson that has been really profound for me, is like getting to talk to people and see how fucked up their life is, even though they have all the money you could imagine.
Yeah. So
and
my quote comes from a book, my client's autobiography. Titled Fun While It Lasted. And he was highly successful, hundreds of millions of dollars. He had the most successful ancient coin selling business. Then he had the most successful thoroughbred horse racing business. Then he bought a major franchise team in Los Angeles and did all this stuff. Produced a bunch of movies that you've heard of, Buckaroo Banzai and like War Games and shit like this. And so to go to your quote, which I was trying, where did I hear that? Oh, that's right. In his autobiography, he says, there comes a point when you get famous, because he was rich, then he got famous when he started making movies and the sports thing. And he says Bill Murray either told him or said once that when you get famous, when you get rich and famous, you become an asshole for like 2 years. And just because it's like everything doesn't, and either you make it out of there,
or you stay there. Yeah.
And it's like somehow it just does this thing. It's like you either like everything's this. And he also said, Bill Murray said in that same conversation, he's like, you think you want to be rich and famous? try getting rich and see if that doesn't solve most of your problems. I thought that was
Oh
great.
man.
But that's not my quote.
Okay.
My quote, which goes to the money thing, because his empire was built on circular transactions with banks, which is a big way of kicking the can down the road until someone's getting shit all over their face.
Yeah.
And he got his shit all over his face. And he ended up going to federal penitentiary for 5 years.
Oh,
as they took all his shit away.
Wow.
And everything
talk about like a
down.
long fall.
Right. Everything came crashing down.
Yeah.
Which, you know, he'd been running from this whole time. So money, this and that. But so he had so much wealth, but no money. Everything was everywhere. Everything's got 9 houses. I've only been to one of them. One of them I've been to once. You know what I mean? It's like all this shit. And he's doing this stuff because you're supposed to do this stuff, even though there's all this fake money shit going on. And when it all came crashing down, this one sports writer said he got it right. He said this guy wanted too much to be liked. Because he never said no. He never disappointed anybody that he was in business with. He just like pushed that little failure into the pile. And then it's like all of the demons, were all of the losses, all of the, and he, like the financial institutions were guilty with him of these circular transactions, because it's like, well, this is fake. Well, that's fake. We'll just pretend it's not fake, and we'll just give you more money because we work on debt, and you just keep rolling that ball. And eventually that ran out. But he said, you know, and he was like, and that was it. I wanted too much to be like, I couldn't say to somebody, I lost your money. The $2 million it was in the early days. So now it's $250 million, because that pattern just, if I can't say no, I can't be seen to fail. I always, it's just, it became this, you know, trying to like spin the plates. And eventually, and it came down, and, you know, he's on his way back up again, because he's actually he's a really good guy. And other than the bank fraud, but you know, there's worse crimes. But he called his experience of money was, it was fun while it lasted. That was his thing. He says he knows other people who have 10 times the money that he was around, like billionaires who clip coupons, and they're just like, because it made whatever their insecurity that much more. So he's like,
I gotta keep pushing that lever.
The more money
and
I have,
can't
the more
stop.
I have to save. Yeah. So I just thought it was neat. I see a lot of people with that problem too, which goes back to the not speaking up for yourself that we talked about. Of like, you know, I just want to be liked. I don't want to disappoint you, so I'm just going to dig this hole. And anytime I might have disappointed you, I'm just going to put it in this hole and hopefully just keep squashing it down. And he felt so relieved when it was all finally over. He had to go do some time, which is its own story, but that was 20 years ago. And you know, he's back out doing whatever he does. And I'm like, but we're going to stay on the straight and narrow now, right? He's like, yeah, I'm not going back. So just a really interesting guy. Just like, I've never met anybody who fucking, the guy used to own the Kings. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I don't know. I don't have.
Getting into the model of the world of people with that radically different life experience has been really healing for me, because it heals some of your own. Not that I don't want money. I like money. Money is great. I want as much money as I can.
I like money though.
Yeah.
You like money? I like money. Idiocracy, and just watch that.
Yeah.
You like money? I like money.
So, but the attachment to it. So, like, one of the traps that I've seen, there's two. One related to money and one related to fame. One is that there's a client that I'm working with, very successful, has a CEO of several multi-million-dollar businesses. And one of the traps that he's gotten into is that when you have that much money and power, people won't be honest with you.
Well, that's Robert Anton Wilson says that too. It's like,
the
king is the dumbest guy around. No one's telling him what's really going on, because no one wants to break the bad news.
Yep.
So it's
I was sharing with him
that's
this
why
this
Kanye's
business.
clothing is so
Oh my
ugly.
God. Yes.
No one
Yeah.
goes,
What a perfect
uh,
example.
Kanye? Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, coming from a guy in a crazy shirt, but like that guy's got some like odd choices.
No kidding. It's one of those things that you don't anticipate, but when you talk to somebody, and like for me, one of the ways I was able to connect with this guy is by being able to describe his situation at the level of power and success that he's at, in a way that he's like, I've never talked to anybody who
Right.
gets what I go through in that way. That
Nice.
there's this
Yeah.
business principle that the most important one of the most important things for success in an organization
Yeah.
is clear communication from the bottom to the
Feedback.
top.
Yeah. Clear feedback.
And you
You got
have
to
to
take it.
encourage that. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. If they can sense that you are going to react negatively to what they're going to say, they're not going to fucking say it, because they're not going to risk that you're going to get angry or whatever. So to be like, okay, now everyone is in their place, everyone's doing what I want, and now I'm alone.
Right.
Everyone's afraid of me.
Right. Yeah. That's
And they all do what I want, but I can't get honest feedback from anybody. And it's like, it is an existential nightmare.
Yeah. And
me.
no one's ever talked to this guy in the realm of metaphor before,
Right.
like on that level of stuff. And he's like, you know, like I hear what you're saying, like, because he's super smart and he figured things out for himself. He's seen the world 1,000 times, met every fucking cool person ever, but he's never, I mean, someone hasn't overtly gone, but what about, you know, look at it this way, you know, these resources, put them here, do that. And I'm not, because I would imagine after 25, 30 years of being the tippy top of the whatever and everybody doing this, it's nice to have somebody just talk to you. Like,
just to be able to cut through that. I mean, I think that's the thing about being like a very attractive female, is also in that place. If you can just talk to the person like a normal fucking human being, what are you? Like, I've heard of people who hang out with certain celebrities too. Like, what?
You're gay.
I've heard of comedians that become friends with really high level celebrities just because they can give them shit, and they're like, I'm not scared of you. And then they're like, oh my God, I want you to hang around me all the time because I'm so tired of all these fucking ass kissers. Yeah. So the other story, one of my heroes, I love Adam Savage of Mythbusters fame. I resonate with his life ethic and everything about him. I love. And he told this story recently. Someone asked him, what are the best and worst parts about fame? And he said, let's start with the worst. And he said, first of all, the vast majority of the time, the worst thing about fame is being slightly inconvenienced. And he said, I want to be very clear about that. That's the worst. Is it somebody's like, hey, I'm trying to get out of a restaurant. Somebody wants to say, hey, I love your work. And he's like, smallest violin in the world. And he said, here, I'll tell you one time when it was truly horrible. He said, I was in the Denver airport with my son, who was about 6 years old, and we got separated. And he said, I was trying to go through, at the peak of his fame with Mythbusters, he's like, I'm trying to go through an airport looking for my son, and I'm making eye contact with everybody. Thinks I'm making eye contact with them, and every single one of them, because of the social contract, thinks that means it's okay to come up and talk to me. And I have to sit there and go, no, I'm sorry, I have to find my son, I can't talk to you right now. And he said, it was the closest thing to like a genuine panic attack he's ever had. He was like, I don't get claustrophobic. You can lock me in a coffin and bear me on.
Looking for my missing child might have added to the panic.
Oh, sure. But I'm saying, like, that's scary enough. But then on top of that, to be in this place where you feel like, I don't want to be an asshole, but all these people are crowding in on you. Like, it was one of those moments where I'm like, that is such a good illustration of the hell that fame can be in certain circumstances. And he was very clear to say, like, that's not an all the time thing, but that was an experience where he was like, that was horrible.
Yeah. Or you go, hey everybody, I'm famous guy, look for a 6-year-old boy.
Yeah. Yeah, that could work.
Yeah. All right, Well,
Well, cool. Do we have any questions? I haven't seen
I don't
anything
think
pop
so.
up on mine.
Yeah, it's all right. We can
Okay.
shine that part. Nobody cares.
Mhm.
Who's got a question? You got a question?
I don't have any questions.
Yeah.
I'm all done. I have only answers.
Exactly.
Okay, well, that's it.
All right,
That was a
man.
good show.
Cool.
I'm glad we're back in the swing of it. Maybe next week we'll be on Wednesday, and then we'll see how things are going. Are we normally
Yeah.
on Wednesdays?
Yeah, but yeah, we'll
You got
figure it
something?
out. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. All right.
All right.
Peace, love, and NLP, everybody.
Hey, man.
Later.